Richmond, Virginia has a very good talent attraction effort. Savannah has a cool community talent traction oriented towards more of the young population, but we took some ideas from that. So it's out there, and what we found is it's more prevalent on the East Coast. Remember, they've been going through, changes in the auto industry and transformations where this isn't so new to the communities in Ohio, Virginia, the areas where we found these models. And then what I'd also add is that, if you ask yourself the question, what would a newcomer feel like coming into your community, would you feel good that you have their needs covered? And the products might differ from websites in our case to ambassadors, but I think there's something you can do in almost every city or area that's going to make a difference to these people looking at your community, coming into your community. And if you look at who they are, these are people that make really usually pretty good money. Usually have a disposable income, are investors in your community. I used to say they buy a house, they may still do that, but you definitely want these people to come and stay in your city. And so the bottom line, we have a lot of investors, probably like you do, that are coming in the form of healthcare, hospitals, high-end employers like Boeing, aerospace companies, and we've benefited from their generosity, and we've usually answered a couple questions when it comes to getting a pledge card out of them. But I will tell you, this is the most tangible initiative we have ever done for them. Helping GE attract a couple high-end people to the community and keeping them is far more relevant than anything we had really done. Again, bringing new industry to town, if it's a supplier, it might help GE. But mostly they operate in their own domain with a lot of supplier connections into Seattle. So, we'd say, well, the boats are rising. Well, their boat's pretty high as it is. And so, when you're really going to those employers, if you can crack this nut, you're doing something in terms of adding value to their enterprise that is more tangible than probably anything else you do in economic development. So, the things I think that are important on top of these, talent development, we've gone through a lot of supervisory training, we've gone through lean, but people need to work in teams. And that's one of the things our companies are starting to come back and ask for is, great, so we've got the people with the right mind, but there's 4 and they're all going in different directions and they need to start, working in unison. And there's a whole body of work that we're now starting to stumble on in terms of just how to develop high performance work teams inside of companies. Next fall, or this fall, we're going to do a green training and certification with Impact Washington. And obviously, when you're trying to scale up, train the trainer becomes really important. If you have 4 great people in lean in a workforce of 50, those 4 have to be expert trainers in order for the company initiative to take off. On the talent attraction, we're still working to increase the utilization and effectiveness of our ambassadors. We got 60, but if we don't use them, they're going to forget about us. And there's still a lot of work to make sure they are meaningfully connected between those newcomers and our cadre of people that are going to help. It's starting, but I would say we're at the beginning point there. We're talking about bringing career counselors in from state and private colleges and universities. They've never been wooed. Our HR people love that idea of bringing in the person who runs WSU's employment office. And our deal would be to show them the lifestyle in our community, but then have them take back the 50 high-level job openings that they could post at that university center. And then finally, we're going to do some YouTube video series just featuring people that have moved into our community, some testimonial support that they love it. We do need to develop clearer metrics, but we have great data on the process. The partnerships are strong. And as I mentioned, we really look at this as a core aspect of economic development. This is one of the, I think, better legs we've added to our stool in the last couple of years. So, with that, couple things that I would just observe, and some of this is based on the immediate work, some of it's just based on 20 years of working, between economic development, workforce development. One, be patient. This stuff didn't happen overnight. It took us 2 years to literally get through the website, the development of our talent attraction initiative. It took us years to fine-tune the incumbent worker training and get the lean courses developed so that they were smooth, and to see a progression towards the other training we're offering. Consider wearing the other partner's shoes. When we first got into this, we stared at some folks that we liked over at the workforce development side, but had a long way to go in terms of understanding how their programs worked, what their priorities were. And in order for us to have that effective partnership between the two agencies, we had to learn what they were doing, and vice versa. They had to learn what we were doing. And we had to be empathetic and patient to say, hey, we're not going to succeed unless we move together forward. And so I find our economic development troops are often oriented to the businesses, which are moving pretty quickly. Our workforce development folks are often, focused on trying to place people into jobs, which is a challenge. It consumes a lot of resource. And therefore, the marriage is not just automatic. You really have to search for common ground and trust one another. I would also say we, as a group, have to bat for the funding. Right now, as the Congress is looking at cutting a bunch of money out of the budget, they took square aim at WEDA. Okay, they're eliminating the federal funds that flow down through our state to do great job training, great stuff, and I think more cuts are on the horizon. And whether it's keeping our kids in school, giving them summer youth employment opportunities, getting our adults back into the labor market if they've been dislocated, that's what these resources do, and they're critically important. And if they get scarcer, then we're going to just have to squeeze that narrower and narrow. And I'm afraid that we're going to lose core support for initiatives like the one I've been talking about, and a lot of the other good programs that really are aimed more towards employers. So I end with this. I told you to be patient, but I also think you need to push hard and explore the boundaries. None of this good stuff would have happened if we had just sat back and, thought, well, they're busy. Let's go away and maybe find another day. It was through, seeing something that was important, exploring those boundaries with our partners, being patient with them, and frankly, them being patient with us, that we're able to advance these two key initiatives and see some success out of it. So, I think I'm done. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am. I'll see that.
Aside from wages, what other kinds of incentives have employers used to bring in people? Because employers really aren't paying top dollar around this area.
That's a really wide open question. It still, to a lot of our high-end recruitment, it really does come down to wages. Okay, a doctor is going to be very competitive. They know what they're worth, and for us to get a doctor, whether it's from the University of Washington or out of California, they're going to command a very decent salary. But I think as you go from the doctor scale of earnings down to somebody like an entry-level machinist that's at a different level, you've got to read the candidate, because they're going to differ. Some of the younger candidates are frankly they're gonna be more interested in off-time benefits. How much vacation time do I get? Do I get a flexible work schedule? Again, in my discussions with GE, it's very difficult to get that younger worker to do any overtime anymore. And so that's a change from, at least in her HR mind, from one generation to the next. And so, pay matters, but I think that healthcare benefits, retirement, it's the whole package of resources you offer, and you've got to really interview the candidate to see what sticks out as the highest priority in their mind. Interestingly enough, again, younger worker, they may not care as much about healthcare as a good personal time off package. Yeah, back there. Yeah.
Hi, David. One of the coolest things I think Yakima has is your theater.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of great things in Yakima, but I tell people all the time about the theater and the Broadway shows and the arts community that you have. And so I'm curious if you use that and if people are coming to be a part of that.
We're using it in spades on our lifestyle website. Thick sections on the arts community. One of the, I would say between that one and our outdoor recreation pages, it's probably one of the deepest sections on our webpage. But it's funny, when we're now saying we're a great place to do business and a great place to live. And it rolls off so smoothly, and as a great place to live or do business, the arts is central to that. And so you can sell it generically, but one of the things we really try and do with our blog posts, which we do weekly, is call out some of the unique things that would necessarily be looked over when you're just describing organizations. So we have a unique backstage artist group, and we were able to profile them in a blog. And if you looked at our website carefully, what we really do is it's in a blog section, but then we highlight that in the art section. So you get all the facts and statistics, but you get all the interesting sidelight stories if you want them as well. More important than ever before.
Hey, David, you talked about the brain drain and talent development. I also know you have a pretty unique entrepreneurial training program as well. Does that tie into any of this at all?
No.
It doesn't?
It does, Maury. I think, you're selling the community, and what we really did a couple of years ago is we realized that, the old model of just pure recruitment is dead. Okay, the pipeline's smaller. We live in a global economy where we're just not going to see the same trend in terms of domestic expansion or international expansion. And so if you're really looking for economic vitality, you have to do new things. This was one of the new things, was talent attraction. The other one was entrepreneurship. If you're really about growing jobs in your community, you've got to, tend your garden, if you will. That's both the established businesses, which has always been, a core part of economic development, business retention and expansion. But you also have to look at the emerging companies outside of manufacturing and some of your key sectors, because within that area, you're going to find gazelles. One, you're doing good things to just lay a safety net for all small business in your community, but you'll find that 1 in 100 businesses in your community that has the potential to grow from 2 employees to 100. And so, our cylinders are now, we're going to still recruit, but we're going to be reasonable about how many eggs we put in that basket. We're going to put heavy emphasis into business expansion and retention that includes a component on entrepreneurship. And then we're going to get heavily vested in this talent attraction, which is, just what we need to do in this day and age to see our community grow. So Maury, it's a part of it. Some of these folks that coming into your community, like a doctor, want to start a business on the side. So it all does fit together.
Dave, can you talk about a little bit more about the supervisor training program that you mentioned? Who do you manage that, and where do the dollars flow from?
Sure. The Workforce Council gave us, I believe, $6,000 to $8,000 as a grant to manage a project where they could count at the end of the day the number of people that had received supervisory training certificates. This was a recommendation that flowed out of the manufacturing skills panel, which they listened to carefully. And so what we did was we just took the money and then we did a bid. We found the instructors we wanted to deliver the supervisory training, and then we just organized it, offered it, did all the paperwork. And paperwork's pretty important to our WEDA partners. So front to end, that we managed it, Jeff.
Fantastic. Well, let's give Dave a big round of applause. Thank you
Thank you.
very much.